Okay guys, well I know I haven't done a video in a couple of weeks, but I did say that I really am only going to do a video when I do see some information that I feel you need to look into further and we need to be aware of. As for earthquakes and all of the other earth changes, we are just continuing to see strong earthquakes occurring around the planet. We've just had some very strong earthquakes happen in Greece. We had a 5.3 which has damaged some roads, and subsequently we have had some severe aftershocks. They did just have another 5.0 about an hour and a half ago. So we are just continuing to see more of these earth changes escalating. They are not stopping. We are still seeing more volcanic activity increasing. In fact, we're now seeing dormant volcanoes beginning to awaken. We're still seeing more major flooding events. We've just had a catastrophic severe weather event happen in Haiti, and they are now looking at a death toll of over 1,000 people, and they are basically dealing with a country that has been devastated by this hurricane. And there's also record flooding due to this hurricane now occurring in Northern Carolina, and rivers are peaking at record levels, and people are experiencing these events in a negative way, and this is because we are continually just seeing these earth changes escalating, and we're still seeing more typhoons now in the Philippines. The Philippines is also about to experience another typhoon. And they're saying that in Australia, our cyclone season could be above average. So I just am not going to continue to repeat myself in videos every day. There are plenty of channels that do cover these weather events. There are plenty of websites that do cover these weather events. And I actually do post every day on my Google Plus page and do keep up to date with all of these latest events. We are also seeing more cold events happening. We are now heading into summer in the southern hemisphere. However, we are also continuing to see more cold events occurring in the southern parts of Australia, Western Australia, and over in New Zealand. They are still seeing massive snow events happening, so that's very unseasonal. But we're also seeing that winter is making an appearance. Well, winter-like weather is making an appearance in Canada and in the United States and parts of Europe. So if people do want to have access to these updates, you just need to join my Google page, and you can follow me daily, because this is where I do update daily. But as far as doing the videos, I really only do the videos when I see some information that I find I need to bring to your attention, which is what this information actually shows me, that things seem to be changing when we see that Obama has now ordered that there be a plan for extreme space weather. Now, the reason that I do find this interesting, and this article was published on Newsweek Tech and Science on the 14th of October, I find this interesting because we're actually moving out of the solar maximum. And so even though we may see a rogue solar flare that is in the higher strength, moving into the strength and the severity that could cause some damage with infrastructure, I do find it interesting that he has not actually used this executive order earlier in this solar cycle, because we have had very severe and extreme space weather occurring since 2011, 2011 and 2012, and we've seen X flares around these times, and yet Obama hasn't seen fit to actually have a executive order put in place in case any of those events were to lead to significant disruption to the power grids. And so I find it interesting that he is now using his power to put in place this executive order as we are now moving out of this solar maximum and moving into a solar minimum, which we have seen due to the lack of sunspots and also the lack of solar activity that we've been experiencing over the last 3 to 4 months. And I have done videos in regards to this solar quiet that we have been experiencing. So if you do want to see this information and the video, then just check out my channel and check out the playlists on my channel under the End of an Age playlist, and you can see all of the previous videos I have done in relation to these earth changes. And so anyone just finding my channel today and just watching this video today for the first time, you will need to actually go and look at all of my previous research I have done over the last 5 years into these earth changes and how they are connected to the ancient information that was left to us and the ancient sciences and the esoteric knowledge, so that you can have a full understanding of why all of these events are occurring. Otherwise, you can only really address all of these changes on a physical level. And so you have to understand that there's also a spiritual side and an ethereal side to everything that is occurring on our planet. And if you can't process this as a complete understanding for both the physical and the spiritual, then you are not really going to see everything in the broader perspective that you actually need to see it in to have this full understanding. You'll only actually see it in a physical way, or as some religious people will only ever see it in a spiritual way. They've not been able to fuse the two sides together so that they can see the whole picture, and so you just walk around half blind. If you're only going to see everything in the physical, then you're really not going to understand the causal nature. We have a lot of channels and a lot of space weather channels that explain to us the physical effects that we can see happening around our planet and we can see happening with space weather, but they don't actually address the causal reason behind why these events are happening. And this is what I do on my channel. I look at both cause and effect. I fuse both spirit and science together, both spirit and the physical. So once we understand that religion and science are fused, and a lot of people find that very confusing, then we can understand this information in the perspective that it needs to be seen in. If you can't understand how spirit and science are fused, which is what used to actually be taught in the ancient times as philosophy, spirit and science were fused, then you're really stuck in that mentality where you have to see everything in a physical way. Everything has to be actually tangible to you in a physical way, and so you're not going to actually understand the spiritual side of what is occurring. You need to reason and deduce all of this information in a more intuitive and more instinctive way to understand the spiritual nature behind the physical. If you can't do that because you're locked in that mentality where you need tangible evidence for every effect that you can see actually happening around our planet, then you're really going to not be able to grasp a full understanding of all of these events and why they are occurring. You have to be able to look at this information in a more spiritual perspective as well. You need to be able to grasp that not everything is physical, that there's a spiritual nature behind mankind. There is a spiritual nature behind our existence. And this is what the ancient philosophers knew, and this is the type of information that I've been studying and I've been researching over the last 5 years. So if you want to access all of that research, then I would suggest that you look through my playlist so you do have a better understanding of why these events are occurring. Otherwise, you'll just be continuing to focus on the physical effects. You won't actually understand why it's all happening. And so you're really only ever going to see something from one perspective. It's like only having one side of the story. So when we actually understand that there is a lot of information that the government are not revealing to us, that the religious organisations are not revealing to us, we can see why they may be actually implementing this executive order now, after we are exiting this solar maximum, when they could have actually placed this executive order around 2011, 2012. We can see that this could be because they are actually going to take out these solar grids themselves, these electrical grids themselves, and blame it on a solar event. This is what makes me think this could be the case, because these electrical grids, our electrical grids, are going to be taken out because we are energizing as a planet. And as a species, we are energizing. We are seeing more electrical events happening this year, more deaths occurring because of lightning, and this is because we are being charged up. We are experiencing our planet and ourselves being charged up. And so eventually, our power grids, the transformers, are not going to be able to, they aren't going to be able to handle this extra energy, and it will overload them. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to happen anytime soon. I'm not sure of when this event will take place, but it is also spoken of in Johann Fried's prophecy of Orion and the great event of the firmament. And anybody that has been following my information and research over the last 5 years knows the importance of Orion. And so he mentions in his prophecy, which is really only him relaying information that he had access to, that even our artificial lights will cease to give service and the great event of the firmament will be near. So this isn't going to happen until we are seeing a lot of other events occurring due to our planet being energized. But eventually these grids, our electric grids, will go down. They will not be able to sustain the energy. And so my thoughts are that Obama is actually going to take these grids out, and this is going to be blamed on a solar flare or on space weather, because they like to have control of everything. They do not like to leave anything to chance. They want to be in full control, and to have full control, they can choose when to take these grids out rather than leave it to when we actually experience this on a level that they have no control over. And really, when we are getting to this part of the cycle, they really do not have much control over anything. And so while they do still have control, I think this is why he has put this executive order in place, is so that they can just take out these grids themselves and then blame it on the space weather and then enact all of the laws that they have now put in place when this happens. Now, this is only just what I can deduce based on the information that I have at hand. There could be other reasons that he is doing this that I'm not aware of, but I do know that Obama is just a puppet of the Jesuit. They are all puppets of the Jesuit. Even Trump. Trump is Jesuit educated. He went to a Jesuit university. Pence is a Catholic. Kane is a Jesuit. Do you think that's just something that's happened by coincidence? No. The Jesuit have fully infiltrated both sides of government. So people thinking that just because Trump may become president, all of these things we need not worry about because he is going to save America and save the world, really don't seem to grasp the fact that he is just another puppet, and the only reason that we have the belief that he is not establishment is because the media appear to attack him. And how easy would it be for them to create this situation in where the media report on certain events to appear to attack Donald Trump, therefore making him seem like an outsider? Because before Donald Trump began to run for president, he was one of them. He was rubbing shoulders with Kissinger. He was rubbing shoulders with all of the neocons. You know, he was just another one of them. And now suddenly we're meant to believe he's switched sides because he cares so much about Americans. Yet he has never shown this in his actions before. So he's just another side of the coin. Hillary's one side, Trump's the other side. But they're the same coin. Nothing's going to change. In fact, it's just only going to get worse, regardless of who they instate as the next president, because I don't know why people suddenly think that they get to vote in their presidents and that their presidents aren't selected and instated. Because it just seems that all these previous understandings that we had of the situation that we were in regarding this matrix they created for us has now been thrown out the window, and everything has just returned to this system is something that is real and is something that is going to benefit us because somebody has put himself up as our savior, and he's going to build a wall and protect us from the bad people, and he is going to be the law and order president, and he is going to make everything great again in America. Now, if you actually look between the lines of what he is saying, the law and order president means more surveillance of all citizens, not just Muslims. He's talking about profiling all Americans, anyone that looks suspicious, apparently, and this is just based on what experts tell him. He is looking at stop and frisk, okay? So if you look suspicious, he's going to give police powers just to stop you. People seem to think that he's only actually referring to Muslims or black people or Mexicans when he's making these statements, but that's not what he's saying. He's saying that he's going to use these laws over all of the population, not just one sector of it. And so people have to look into what he's saying, because he's actually bringing in a police state to keep you safe. And so, again, he's been presented to us as something he is not, but when you scratch the surface, you can actually see the truth. And this is what people have to do instead of getting caught up in this left-right paradigm, because that's what they're doing. People are getting caught up in, if you don't agree with Trump, then you must like Hillary. If you don't like Hillary, you must like... I mean, no, both are as bad as each other. They're two sides of the same coin. For God's sake, Hillary went to his wedding. They are friends. In 1998, Trump was actually supporting Bill Clinton against his accusers. He was calling his accusers terrible people. You know, the only time that he began to speak out against the Clintons was when he was put in as the candidate for the GOP, because it's all a stage show. It's all a circus act. It's all fake. It's all staged. They're friends behind closed doors, okay? The left-right paradigm is just a mentality that people get trapped in, and it keeps them blind to the truth. And so There is no hope of somebody saving us, of a billionaire real estate developer and casino owner taking control of America on November the 8th, and suddenly everything's going to be okay, and there's going to be transparency in government, and there's going to be transparency in the media. That's the other really concerning thing I see. Everybody blaming the media. The media are evil. And so, in other words, you're saying when Trump is instated as the president, you don't want independent media anymore. You just want Trump to create a government media, just a government-owned and operated media. Why don't we call it the Ministry of Truth? And if anybody doesn't understand what I'm talking about when I say that, maybe you should go and read George Orwell's 1984. Because by saying that you aren't smart enough to discern information from independent media, even if it is biased, and so in that way you think that there should be no independent media because you don't think they're truthful, then you're saying that you just think the government should be providing us with knowledge and information because the government are trustworthy. Trump's government are so trustworthy, we don't need CNN, we don't need Fox, we don't need all of the other independent media, we just need Trump's media to tell us all the truth. I mean, that is quite scary to me when I see people going into that mentality. When I see people saying things like, wait till Trump's president and CNN's going to be out of a job, they're going to be gone, they're going to be in jail. I mean, I just never thought that I would see this when I was researching information in 2012 and people seemed to be actually awakening to the fact that we were all trapped in this false reality that they created for us, this matrix that they created for us, and now suddenly, within the space of a year, everybody's forgotten about that, and this person that they have given us as the savior of America and the world is now going to just remove all evil, and all anybody has to do is just turn up to a polling booth on the 8th of November, and that's it, it's done. I mean, people really need to start looking at things deeper, scratching the surface and looking underneath. Because yes, it is a conspiracy, a huge conspiracy against mankind. You know, did people really think they were going to hold up a sign and tell you, yes, this is what we're doing. Yes, we are evil. No, they're going to do everything just underneath the surface, very subtly, the hidden hand from behind the curtain, and nobody knows who the puppeteers are. But the puppeteers are the Jesuit. If you go and do the research, it's the Jesuit that are controlling everything and always have for centuries, because all of this that is occurring now on a political level is all something that they have been putting in place for centuries because they understand the cycle that we're in. They know the cycle that we exist in. We don't live in this linear way of existing where everything behind is behind and everything in front is just like it's down one line. We live in a cycle. And we're moving towards the end of the cycle, which is why I call this series The End of the Age, because we are moving towards the end of the age, the Iron Age, because we are in the Iron Age of this cycle, a very unconscious and physical part of the cycle. And this is where we are facing our tests. And this is where the ancients have left so much knowledge for us so that we could have an understanding of these times. But a lot of that information has been destroyed, stolen, locked up under the Vatican by the Jesuit once again, stolen all of our information, and they admit it. They admit that they have all of our knowledge, but nobody goes and takes it back, even though it belongs to mankind. Now, just before I do finish this video, I did just want to show you some of this ancient knowledge that was left to us. And this is from the Gospel of Thomas, okay? And it goes on to say, the disciples said to Jesus, "Tell us how will our end come?" And Jesus said, "Have you found the beginning then, that you are looking for the end? You see, the end will be where the beginning is. Congratulations to the one who stands at the beginning. That one will know the end and will not taste death. Now, the Gnostics were talking about the cycle that we exist in. That is what this verse is relating to. And interestingly, we also see this mentioned in the Kolbrin manuscripts. Now, these verses, BRT 3:54, a Roman soldier who hailed from Gaul spoke up, saying, "Let scribes do what scribes do best, and swordsmen do what they do best. But it is foolishness and futile to set one against the other, for men cannot write with swords, or fight with quills, or writing reeds. Let men become brothers, as they await the day of the awakener. Tell me, good master, when shall the end be?" Jesus answered, "There will be an end to the beginning, and men will know this by the spirit of the times. Men will no longer be as brothers, nor will they be manly. Women will be as men, and men as women. Adultery will not be condemned, nor will fornication. Therefore, these will flourish. Men will not honour their homelands, and there will be no discrimination among them, nor will they maintain the purity of their races. Fathers will not be honoured, nor mothers respected, and children will be raised to be wayward. Perversions will be encouraged, and criminals will mock the law. There will be incest and rape, and it will be unsafe to walk abroad. Floods, famines, droughts, and earthquakes will cause death and destruction. Strange sickness will smite the people, and there will be a denial of God. Babes will be slain in the womb." So, again we see that we've been left information from the ancients, and that the Kolbrin manuscripts actually are very connected to what we just saw in the Gnostic texts in regards to the end and the beginning, and how they are the same because we exist in a cycle. And we can see that this is connected to the actions and behaviour of our politicians, which is why I was saying before that everything is fused. It's all connected, the physical and the spiritual, the political and the religion. The only separation is just an illusion of a separation, because behind the scenes, the Jesuit have control of all of our politicians. Even in Australia, our politicians are Jesuit. Bill Shorten is a Jesuit. Barnaby Joyce is a Jesuit. Joe Hockey is a Jesuit. Tony Abbott is a Jesuit. I mean, these are all our upper levels of government in Australia. And you think that's a coincidence too, that they're all Jesuit? Even though we were left information by Madame Blavatsky that the Jesuit were going to create turmoil in Europe with the Muslims flooding a decaying Europe. Even Abraham Lincoln warned that the Jesuit were going to cause trouble in these times in America. But people just seem to have a very short memory when it comes to all of this knowledge left to us, and they just want to focus on what the media are reporting. They think they understand propaganda, but they don't really understand how propaganda works and how psyops work, because they don't understand that the media are actually attacking Trump as a way to make him appear like an outsider, a way to make him look like he is not establishment, because the media are attacking him, so he must not be one of them. But it's just all propaganda. They are setting the stage, because there are certain things that they don't actually report about Trump. In a rally at Costa Mesa in April, he was actually talking about bringing back the draft. I don't see any media outlet actually relaying that information. I don't see Alex Jones actually relaying all of the connections that Trump has to Israel. I don't see Alex Jones relaying how Trump is taking money from the secret organisation called the Children of Israel. You know, I don't see how the mainstream media reporting on all the connections that Trump has with the establishment like Henry Kissinger, and how he was partying, and he can be seen photographed with his wife Melania partying with Henry Kissinger and all of those neocons in 2010. But suddenly he's on our side, apparently, because in the last year, the media are appearing to attack him. And so that must mean that he's not one of them. Well, look, you know, I'm just here to relate information that I've been studying over the last 5 years. And because I actually believe the ancients and the information they left for us and the knowledge they left for us over what modern science and politicians and education, systems that are all government controlled and all teach a government doctrine, I don't actually look at that as truth, because that's all just creating a perspective for people to exist in, a matrix. That's what creates the matrix. You go to their education systems, you watch all of their media, and it creates your perspective of what your reality is. And it's completely just an illusion. They have created a matrix for you to exist in, and the truth is that we are spiritual beings. We live in a spiritual existence, and we also exist in a cycle, and this cycle is now moving towards the end of the great year, which is why we're seeing all of these extreme earth changes, these weather events, increased earthquakes, increased volcanic activity, and it's all mentioned in all of the ancient texts that this is what we would actually see. In the Norse mythology, we were told that we would start to see more cold events, more extreme events, moving towards a time of a cooling in our climate, and this would actually be something that would signify us moving into Fimbulwinter, which was part of the Ragnarok, which is basically aligned to the Christian mythology of the apocalypse, which is also what many other philosophers have relayed in their teachings, including Manly P. Hall, who does not exclude the Christian scriptures from his studies, from his lectures. He identifies that there are parts of Christian mythology that is aligned to the great teachings of the ages. And so what we need to understand is that everything is fused, that all of these different scriptures, ancient texts, and all of the ancient sciences are actually fused. They're actually all got a common core, and when you look beneath the surface, you can understand what that common connection is, and it's all about the spirituality within mankind, the cycles in which we exist, and how we are now basically needing to go back to that understanding, go back to that wisdom that was left for us so that we can understand the times that we are now existing in. Because if we don't, we're going to remain blind, and we're going to be able to be played by these people that have taken power, who I call the Antichrist, because they are against the Christ within you. It's nothing supernatural. These people aren't supernatural. They are just against the light within mankind, the light within you, the divinity within us. They want to destroy it. They want to extinguish it. And so people have to identify that now and stop moving into this mentality that we can be saved just because we turn up to a polling booth and we elect a different person to take control of our lives. And this person just happens to be a billionaire real estate developer and casino owner. And suddenly he is going to have military strategies, and he's going to have financial strategies that are going to save us all. Not only America, but the world. Because, let's be clear, America are basically the country and the government that steers this ship that is our entire planet, the governments on our planet. We all have to acknowledge that, and my country especially, because whatever America do, we follow, and so do most other countries. So it's very important that we also pay attention, even if we're not in the US, of what's happening over there. And I know that it's not going to change just because Donald Trump might be instated as the next puppet for the puppeteers to use to control us, because everything is just an illusion. We need to understand that everything we live, everything we exist is just an illusion, and go back to what the truth is. And the truth is very simple. When you actually seek it out and you find it and discover it, you understand that the truth is very simple. Anyway, I think I've made up for my lack of videos over the last couple of weeks, so I'll leave that here. I'll leave this article underneath the video and you can check that out. You know, anyone that hasn't seen John Freedy's prophecy, I really would suggest you watch this, and there's a link to the full prophecy if you don't want to watch the video and actually just read the prophecy. There is a link on the video as well, so you can just go there and check that out. And, you know, understand that this information was left to us because it is to be utilised so we do have an understanding for the times we're in. And we're not going to just be confused and one of the masses, one of the lemmings heading for the cliff, you know, just going over the cliff with everybody else, you know. Only dead fish swim with the current because they're dead, okay? It's the one fish, it's the live fish that goes against everything, that swims upstream. You know, be that fish going upstream. Don't just go along with everything else because it seems easier, because it seems a lot more safer. You know, because yes, you will be ridiculed if you go against the storyline, if you go against the matrix. You will be ridiculed. You will be singled out. You will be mocked. But what's the alternative? Just to go along with the crowd, just to go along with the masses? Well, your rewards will be what their rewards will be in the end. And it's not going to be something that's very positive. So I would rather have a full understanding of what is approaching mankind and what is approaching me, so that I can prepare for that on every level, spiritual, consciously, and physically. And so I would suggest that if people really want to, you know, have that understanding, that you go and do the research. You know, I'm not saying I have all the information. I've just gone and looked up everything that I could find in the ancient mythologies, in the ancient texts, in the holy books, all of them. I read all of them. I don't just read the Bible. I don't just read the Quran. I don't just read the Zohar or the Torah, all the Gnostic Gospels. I read everything. I read it all. I look at everything. I don't dismiss anything. I take everything on what its basic merit shows me that it can be trusted, because it actually ties into another text and it can actually be confirmed by the sacred sciences like Hermetics. You know, once you use everything at your disposal, especially Hermetic science, then you can weigh and measure all of these texts. You don't just need a priest to tell you, oh yes, this is truth because it's in this book. Because truth can be found everywhere. And if you think as a Christian that God only revealed information to white Christians and white Catholics, then really you are quite naive, because divine wisdom was revealed, was relayed to every culture in the own way that they perceived it. And this is why we get all the different stories. This is why the Hindu tell the stories in their way. This is why the Quran is different to the Bible, but actually if you look at a lot of the verses, they're the same. They're telling the same story. It's got the same information. It's just that it's expressed differently. And the only reason you hate the Quran is because the media have created a perspective that Islam is evil, because all they had to do was have a few people blowing up and killing other people and then saying they've done it in the name of Islam, saying that they've done it in the name of Allah, and that's all it takes to convince people that now Islam is evil. Yet if you actually went to read the Quran and saw the information for yourself and you weren't fearful of it, you could see that the Quran isn't evil. It's no different than the Bible. And yes, there are some verses in Scripture that are quite violent, but you have to take it in the context that it is being given. And because scripture is all written in allegory and symbolism, you can't just take it literally. There's some parts that you take literally, there's some parts that you take symbolically. Just like Israel. Israel isn't a country that was created in 1948. Jewish people aren't just people that follow a religion called Judaism. Because if you actually look at scripture, the children of Israel were dispersed to the four corners of the planet. So how could the children of Israel have a nation when they've been dispersed? Because they're everywhere. They're everywhere throughout mankind. And when you understand the truth behind scripture, you understand that completely. And I know that people who have been studying this information as I have been studying it know who the children of Israel are, know what Israel is symbolic for. Knows that you can read every holy text and have an understanding for the information and knowledge that is encoded within it. And so until people get to that point and remove the fear and remove the blinkers, then really you are just at the hands of the puppeteers. They're just going to be controlling you. Even if you think they're not, they are. Okay, well, I really will leave it here now. And as I said, everything's linked underneath the video. This video of the prophecy from Johann Friede. I'll put my link to my Google page, so if you want to keep up to date with all of my posts that I make every day about the latest earth changes and events and political events, then please just click on that and follow my page. But other than that, I will just keep updating with videos when I see something that I do think that you guys need to pay attention to. And this is something that I did think that was quite interesting, the timing of it, and it just shows me that we are moving to some tumultuous times. I really do think that on a political level, things are really going to start escalating, and this is part of that. Well, I'll leave it here, and as always, peace out.